Welcome to another 21 Hats Dashboard brought to you by our sponsor, The Great Game of Business. I'm Loren Feldman, and I'm here with Gene Marks to talk about the things we think business owners should be following this week. Welcome, Gene.
Hello, Lauren. You know what was not a great game was the Sixers game. I just want to say, you bring up this great game of business and it puts me in a bad mood. And,
I don't think you can blame the great game of business for that, though. I think that's more of a Sixer problem.
Listen, they're talking about great games here, and all of my mind is
well, you know what? If you live in Boston, it was a pretty great game.
Yeah, I guess you're right if you're a Celtics fan.
But unfortunately, yeah, I'm a Sixer fan, too. Let's not talk anymore about that.
Bummer. All right. Well, not a great game, okay? Great game of business.
Agreed.
You guys need to be careful how you're marketing your product.
Gene, as usual, you've been writing about stuff that matters to business owners, unlike the Philadelphia 76ers. You recently wrote that the brief age of the worker is over and that employers have the upper hand again. Did I detect some gloating in your piece, Gene?
Yeah. And then afterwards, some things came out afterwards that made me, kind of double think some of the, stuff of what I wrote. For starters, this is a piece that I wrote, I believe, for The Guardian. And it was basically based on the fact that, companies are laying people off all over the place. And I forget it was The Guardian of the Hill, maybe, but whatever. So people are laying, there's been big layoffs both in the tech and the construction industry. Big brands are laying people off as well. And a lot of the big companies, and I just reported on a lot of this stuff, that a lot of big companies were cutting back on the benefits that they're providing as well to employees. No more paternity leave and, beanbag chairs in the restrooms and, God knows whatever. And it was because, there was this sort of backlash. I mean, employers now, as the economy is slowing down, employers are doing what employers do, and they cut back on overhead. I also have, know that there's data because I look back in 2010 when, we had the Great Recession and how so many employers cut back on people back then and still managed to run their businesses effectively. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
I'm waiting for the double think part.
The double think part was this. After I wrote that piece, the Labor Department came out with unemployment numbers at a 50-year low. So I'm like, oh shit. Well, employees really tight out there. So when there's a lack of supply, there's still a lot of say that employees have. That was number one. And then number two, in the same week, the Wall Street Journal released a study that said that employee happiness has never been higher. A large percentage. I don't know if you saw that article or not.
I did see that.
Yeah. A lot of employees were generally happy. I'm like, geez, okay. So employers really are responding to their employees.
Which I think is an important point of this, which I did want to bring up, which is that I don't think the Great Resignation was necessarily an entirely terrible thing for employers.
Yeah.
If employees are making a little bit more money and are happy about it and happy about maybe changing jobs for a career position that is more suitable to them. There are a lot of winners in that scenario.
Yeah, there definitely are. And the whole point, and I've written about this, as you know, before, and I know I come across as the angry old man, and I get it because that's what I'm trying. That's my intention. But at the same time, I really do. If you look back at the stuff that I wrote about this stuff, it's more of tough love for employees. I mean, the way I finished that piece was and people were cheating on me on Twitter.
I get the tough part. I'm not sure I see the love, Gene.
Well, actually it is. At the very end, it's basically hey guys, work hard. Provide return on investment for your employer. Don't stop with the fucking quiet quitting and the basic bare minimum Mondays and all that nonsense, because that's the kind of stuff that employers, they fire employees that have that attitude, both publicly and, and internally. The people that employers don't fire are the ones that work hard and provide return on investment and are there for the long term and don't complain. And by the way, most employees are like that, and I get that. But, if the economy does turn down and we are heading into a recession, if that is, as many people believe, although that's still, I'm on the fence about that too.
We've been saying that for a long time.
We have been saying it for a long time. Meanwhile, inflation continues to go down, unemployment 50-year low. I mean, there's all these signs that, and I talk to my clients and I'm not seeing recession right now at all, but okay, it's a whole other topic to discuss. My point is though, is that, if the age of the employee To me, it seemed like it was ending, and now I'm like, maybe it's not ending yet. Because the data is showing it's still a very strong labor market.
Well, what I hear you saying here and what you wrote in your piece is kind of a reminder to employees that this stuff is cyclical and, it's kind of what comes around goes around. And I would just note that goes both ways. And even if you're right that the age of the employee is ending now, we're still facing a structural labor shortage and it may not be gone forever. And employers should remember that cyclical thing too.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. Like and maybe because I'm so subjective on this, but I don't think employers need to be reminded of that. Like I really do. When I look at all of my clients, they value their employees a lot and they treat their employees well. I see that,
I think you're right about that. I guess when I hear the tone in your piece and the gloating that you acknowledged, I worry that you're sending a signal to employers that is contrary to that. But I agree. Most of the business owners I know understand that.
They do, but at the same time, the employers that I know and the clients that I have, although they do value their employees, they value their good employees. I mean, they're running a business. They value the people that are working hard, not giving them shit, and are providing return on investment for them. And the ones that they value the least are the ones that give them the most headaches. And so that was the point of the piece. That if the age of the worker is ending cyclically. If you're an employee, just be aware that your employer doesn't want to get rid of you, but will if you're not providing the return on investment for what they're paying you to do.
Next topic. Last week, the Business Insider declared the metaverse is dead. You've told us about the metaverse a little bit. You've prepared us for the day when we're all going to be buying our clothes there and opening shops there. Do you think it's dead?
No. It's far from dead. I think it's delayed. And I can tell you the reason why I know that is because I know specific people that are working on projects, building server farms. You don't even want to know where, both in the US and outside of the country, that, with thousands of servers to do just that, to host this metaverse. It is going to happen. It's just not happening as fast. There's been an economic, downturn in the tech industry because of, which has restricted capital for investing. So a lot of the companies are, like you say, Loren, even before things are cyclical, a lot of companies are just a little bit delayed. What's really holding off the metaverse, what's really stopping it, Loren, is hardware.
You mean the headset thing that people need to use it?
Yeah. I mean, right now it's just a game, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like playing like a video game, like you go into some, alternate world. It's really not something that is like has daily use in life. But when the hardware catches up, when we're able to wear glasses like I'm wearing now that don't look, ridiculous, and are light and can have the processing power and the ability to like jump from the real world into a virtual world at a voice command, the metaverse itself will be a huge, huge place where a lot of people will be meeting and conducting business. But right now it's just slowing down. It's not dead though.
Do you think Mark Zuckerberg is still glad he changed the name of his company to Meta?
Yeah, I do. Because I think if Mark Zuckerberg is as smart as I think Mark Zuckerberg is, I think that he is not thinking about 2024. He's thinking of 2034. And I am sure that, the name of his company, Meta, will be absolutely in the right place in 2034.
Next topic. Is it time to worry about the debt ceiling yet?
So it is. And I'm going to tell you why. And I'm writing about this for the Inquirer probably next week because I'm interviewing. It's amazing how many people have no idea, have no advice to give about the debt ceiling, and I do. One advice is, you should worry about it now. Like we're talking about this in the middle of May. People project that we're going to hit a wall in June. But by the way, once we hit that wall, Treasury Secretary Yellen has got some choices about prioritizing certain payments. She can still pay down the debt and hold off paying other areas for government services. And then in the middle of June, what's projected is an increase in tax payments comes in because quarterly payments come due, which may give some relief to her. So it's not going to be like a one-time thing and we fall off a cliff. It's going to be like this, money management issue, and the politicians are going to argue back and forth. Ultimately, it's going to get resolved, but I do expect there to be disruption. So if you're running a business, a certain type of business, you better prepare yourself for this.
By doing?
So first of all, it's anybody that obviously does direct federal contracting needs to prepare themselves. I mean, I was just reading how like almost 30% of federal contracts go out to small businesses. It's like a mandate. So there are a lot of small companies out there, and it's not just the ones that get direct federal financing or contracting, but if indirect, I mean, you might be working for a federal contractor doing work and their payments are going to get stopped or suspended for a while. That could have a serious impact on your cash flow.
What can a business do to prepare for that?
So if you know that in advance, I mean, I know it sounds oversimplified, but you gotta build cash right now. You have to double check your lines of credit and your financing capabilities to make sure you're covering your overhead if you're depending on payments coming in under these federal contracts. And also, you need to be talking to your suppliers and your customers, even your employees, and just letting them know in advance there might be some waves, in the river coming up until this gets resolved. People just need to prepare it in their minds. And you should be talking about it now and preparing for it now. There is absolutely no question. The other people that get affected by this, there's some smaller impacts. I mean, there are a lot of small businesses, as you know, that are located near federal office buildings. There's something like 300,000 or 350,000, literally, according to the Cato Institute, like federal buildings, warehouses and buildings around the country. So, they all have a ecosystem of small businesses that supply them and their employees. So if one of the options that Janet Yellen decides to do is to shut down government work for a while to make payments on the debt, those businesses will be impacted by those employees not coming to work. And then there's a bunch of other federal services that could impact you. You got to be thinking ahead. I mean, passports will be even more delayed. They're super delayed already. The IRS might not be providing as fast services. The Small Business Administration. If you need help with immigration, if you're waiting for regulatory approval, all these things could be impacting if funding is suspended while the government gets their shit together and passes a debt ceiling bill and gets back to work. So got to be thinking about it now.
Are you seeing clients of yours making the decision to hold off on a planned investment of some type in order to hoard cash in preparation for this?
Not yet, not because of this, but one of the things that people are really worried about, which I'm less worried about, is that it could have a significant impact on the credit markets if there's a full-blown default, because I still think the chance of that, like most people I think it's pretty remote, but it could create a lot of uncertainty and volatility in the credit markets, which could have a big impact on on small businesses getting financing. So, but I haven't seen it. Yet.
If anybody is trying to hoard cash right now, is there anything they should be thinking about in terms of where they keep that cash to just be careful?
Yeah. So before, it's funny when I speak to these groups, and when I offer advice to clients about, what to do with your cash, if you can make cash, if you don't mind your cash being non-liquid, treasuries and certificates of deposits are the safest bet for you as long as you spread it out among different institutions, but not now.
Is there any reason to think it might be hard to get that treasury money back if something happened?
I don't think that should be a concern at all. But I do want to say something is that when I'm talking to normal businesses that are like, if you've got the cash, and you can take a percentage and make it illiquid, treasuries are absolutely a safe investment and will continue to be, as well as certificates of deposits. But if you're in the business where you're relying on government work, the last thing you want to do is make your cash non-liquid. So you want to avoid those non-liquid investments and keep it just in your checking account ready to go so that you can use it to pay operations.
All right, last topic, and this is somewhat related. The New York Times ran a story last week reporting that there's a little noticed part of the House debt ceiling bill that could make regulation impossible. I'll quote from the story. The legislation would require Congress to approve regulatory actions before they go into effect under a fast-track legislative process that would force up or down votes on the rules without any possibility of amendment. Any major rule that failed to pass both houses of Congress could not be proposed again for at least a year. That sounds pretty significant. There's also a case moving that the Supreme Court has heard and is going to rule on that affects the ability of agencies to issue regulations. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? I know you don't like being told what to do with your business. What are you thinking about all this, Gene?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you were to poll, at least the business owners that I speak to, I think they would think it's a very good thing. They are, most of the people that I hear I got to tell you, Loren, when I talk about, the upcoming regulations that we're expecting from the Department of Labor this year, worker classifications, overtime rules, pay transparency, potentially mandated vacations, the EEOC, OSHA regulations, which are coming, regulations from the NLRB, even the FTC on non-compete. These are things, some of them can be issued through the departments and others need congressional approval. But man, you should see the guys in the audience look like they're just ready to pull out a gun and kill themselves. So, but luckily, they're not allowed to carry the guns. So that's good news because they would shoot it at me. So when these people, these business owners hear that there's a pullback on regulations or making it harder for government to issue regulations, they breathe that sigh of relief. It's a natural reaction of most business owners.
Well, this may not make it harder. This may make it impossible. I mean, do you really want a world without regulation?
No, of course not. Of course not. But, in this political environment right now, I mean, it's so, divided that it might just lead to just complete stalemate over the next 2 years. That's, for all I know. And you know what? Okay. I mean, if it's stalemate for the next 2 years until the next, the next presidential election, I think we can cope with that until a new administration comes on. But, the people voted for the House of Representatives, Loren, So they are duly elected people. And if the House voted to pass, this law, which could slow down regulations or even make them very, very tough to get through, we live in a democracy. That's what the people voted for. We'll see what the Senate has to say about it.
Fair enough. You told us one piece you're working on. Anything else we should be watching for this week, Gene?
Roth, baby. And I don't mean Hyman Roth from The Godfather. I mean, right, William Roth, the senator, the Roth. I'm working on a piece right now for the Inquirer. We can talk about it next week because I really, we should take a deep dive, you and I, and talk about Roth 401ks for your business because they're a fantastic employee benefit to offer and an amazing tax vehicle right now, tax savings vehicle. So that's something we should definitely talk about next week.
I will look forward to that. Gene Marks is a CPA who writes weekly on small business for The Guardian, The Hill, The Philadelphia Inquirer, The Washington Times, The Chicago Daily Herald, Forbes, and Entrepreneur. You can also hear him on ABC Radio's Eye on the World with John Batchelor. Gene hosts 2 small business podcasts with Paychex Corporation and The Hartford. Gene, thank you so much.
Loren, thank you. We'll see you next week.
Have a great week, everybody.